Week, young minds come together, unlocking solutions for our world's pressing challenges. From revolutionary environmental strategies that safeguard our planet, to transformative mindset shifts that redefine our approach to challenges. In our workplaces, we drive change, fostering innovative solutions for a brighter tomorrow. This is the Mindset Sport with Dr. Richard Munai. Dive deep, question norms, and be inspired.
Welcome to the Mindset Sport, where we dive deep into the issues that the world faces today, more so how to inspire our young people to become solutions providers. Today, I am joined by my co-host, the ever-inspiring Daniel Munan. And today we are diving deep into a topic that resonates with many, especially our young people. And that topic is in one word: laziness. Laziness, yes, I repeat, laziness. But we are not just here to discuss it, okay? We're here to inspire change. We're here to ignite that spark within and to provide actionable steps to overcome it. So if you are seeking to transform, to seize opportunity, and to drive progress, this episode is crafted just for you. So let's embark on this journey together. Afu, welcome to the Mindset Sport. As always, it's a pleasure. And today you are on Cameroon jersey. Why are you wearing a Cameroon jersey? What's the motivation? Tell us.
Well, hi everyone. Welcome to the Mindset Spot, and welcome back if you've been a returning member. And for this episode, like my dad said, we're going to be overcoming laziness and inspiring you guys to seize your destiny. Carpe diem, the Latin phrase for seize the day. And the reason why I'm wearing the Cameroon jersey this episode is because about a week ago or so, Cameroon qualified for the Cup of Nations, which will be held in Cote d'Ivoire this year. And I think that it's very cool that we are always generally top 3 in the Cup of Nations. And also around same time last year, we beat Brazil in the World Cup, and we're the only African country to do so. So about 10 months ago, that's what happened, and I think that we should continue to celebrate our ethnicities, presence, and dominance in sport. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent, Afu. Excellent. Very important point you are bringing up there, that at least you are behind the Indomitable Lion. Before we get to the topic of the day, the African football, which I know you are a fan, and I know that you are really a huge fan. You can see, for those of you who are joining, you can see the numbers are increasing. Welcome to the Mindset Sport. Today we're discussing a very important topic, laziness. But before that, I was just asking Afu, what is our inspiration with football? So yes, Cameroon women football played yesterday. They won Kenya 1-0. What do you have to say about that? I know maybe you didn't catch up with the match, but you do know something about the Cameroon female team, right? Indomitable Lioness, if I call it so.
Yeah, that's really amazing, and they have really amazing players on their team, such as Estelle Johnson, such as Ajora, such as
But by the way, Estelle was not part of this time around.
She wasn't, but she's still an incredible member who plays in the American League, and Ajora plays in the she used to play in the Italian league. I'm not too sure if she plays there. She used to play for Inter Milan female, and I think that with these international superstars competing back to Cameroon, whether they're from the diaspora or whether they were born and raised in Cameroon, I think that it's really brilliant because it shows that Cameroon has talent, not only with the Indomitable Lions, but in both genders and in both aspects of football. Cameroon doesn't come last. And I think we saw that in the 2021 World Cup. We're going to see that in the Cup of Nations, and we're certainly going to see that in many more tournaments, such as friendlies and other matches, where hopefully, fingers crossed, Cameroon will dominate as usual.
Cameroon will dominate as usual. Please, let's get now to the topic of the day, right? Very important topic, and thanks again. As I said, you are an ever inspiring co host. And this topic today of laziness, let's get straight to the business. Um, People who are listening to us today, three-quarter of the people, the reason why we do this is a conversation. And what is the conversation about? It's about reshaping our minds to be able to see opportunity in challenges and of course get others inspired so they can turn challenges to opportunities. But one of the underpinning aspects is laziness. And somebody listening said, so what is laziness, right? And how does it differ from genuine rest or relaxation? Because we equate relaxation and sometimes rest to laziness. So what would you say laziness is? Let's start from there.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And I think that I would describe laziness as just the idea of just not wanting to do stuff. And it's okay to not want to do stuff. But I believe that even though you don't want to do things, you still have to push yourself to do it. Like for me personally, I have to wake up at like 5:45 in the morning to get ready so that I don't miss my bus. Do I want to do that? No. But do I have to? Yeah. Would I rather be sleeping in and miss first period and miss my bus? Absolutely. But can I do that? Not really, because there are repercussions. Similarly to laziness, there are repercussions to that. And I think that once you comprehend that, it will allow you to be a more well rounded and a more, not necessarily hardworking, but a more sustainable person, because laziness is not the most sustainable approach to life.
Absolutely, very important point you are bringing up there. Laziness is sometimes equated, but before we move on to that, I think Mr. Odiambo Amalo or T. Michael says West Africa has talented footballers than the rest of Africa. How true is that, Afu? I
I
know we
feel like I may be a bit biased because Cameroon is in West Africa. Well,
Central Africa.
yeah, depends on who you ask, but it's on the crossroads between West and Central Africa. That's beside the point. But I agree with the fact that West Africa has talent footballers than the rest of Africa. But North Africa also has talented ones like Hakimi and all of them. But in comparison to DJ Drogba, Samuel Eto'o, even the ones that play in the diaspora, for example, Bukayo Saka, Kylian Mbappe, Kunku, Saliba, I could list almost the whole French national team, Pogba, um, all the other players, and even the ones who play for Team USA, like I forgot his name, but the one who played for Team USA who's really good. But I feel like whether West Africans are playing in their country of origin, like for example Ghana, Senegal, Cameroon, Nigeria, or they're playing for the country they grew up in, like Switzerland, UK, France, Canada, USA. For example, Alfonso Davies is our best player in Canada, and he is originally from Liberian descent. So Liberian and Ghanaian descent. So whether they play for their home countries or not, they still definitely shine on the pitch, and you can see the West African flair. So I agree with his comment, and keep the comments coming.
Okay.
If it's about sports or overcoming
Excellent.
laziness, we'll definitely answer them.
Yeah, Afu, let's get back to the topic of the day on laziness. And I want to use sports as an example where we can demonstrate what laziness does. Because sports is an act of perfection to an extent, but it's also an act of resilience and determination. And I think determination and dedication is actually the word to be underlined, which means that if you don't practice, you cannot be able to win. And that is why team sport is very, very important, where everybody play his or her part. And if you are the goalkeeper, or you are the defense, or milieu de terrain, or the number 9 shaded or number 10 to score goals, if you are not prepared and practice effectively, you are not going to collectively make the team to win. Do you think that laziness, in essence, is actually costing a lot of opportunities for young people to seize?
I think that that's a good point, and I feel like with laziness, there are many, many setbacks that come along the way. And let's just keep on using the example of sport. You could be the most amazing striker, but your team will still lose if you don't have good defenders, good midfielders, good goalies. And I feel like that's the same thing. You could be an amazing, I don't know, you could be an amazing writer, but if you don't have the skills of determination, you don't have the skills of focus, you don't have the skills of passion, then is your writing career really going to take off? Not necessarily. So I believe that through having a skill, that's one thing, like a hard skill, like whether it's coding, writing, whatever, you need a combination of soft skills in order, such as determination, such a thing that you won't necessarily learn in a classroom, to enable you to reach your professional, academic, social goals, or whatever aspect. Yeah.
Excellent. And so the key is, if you what we are discussing here, which is that laziness is costing a lot of opportunities. And therefore, from what we are trying to say is that a lot of people are losing opportunity because of laziness. And so the first question we did ask was that what is laziness? So laziness is an inertia. It is a resistance to moving forward. While rest, on the other hand, is a conscious choice to recharge. And so it's the difference between a car stalling and a car refueling. And therefore, we need to then start by listening to exactly what we need to do to be able not to miss opportunities. Because the point is that laziness, being an inertia, and inspiring practical steps to be able to overcome laziness means we need to start listening. We need to make sure that at least we know that if we do not self-motivate ourselves to do something, we will always not want to do it. And remember that every journey begins with a single step. And so if we start thinking only big, that, oh, I wish I was there, laziness start to set in, and we said, oh, I will not do it because I know that I'm not going to reach there. And so forth. What I want to ask you is, why do you think today's young people are sometimes labeled as lazy? What is making anybody to use that word on a young person?
Well, I think that laziness is relative, and I believe that what some people think as lazy isn't necessarily lazy. Like, some people may think that if you don't go to the farm every day and pick bananas and walk to school without shoes and struggle, that means you're lazy. But necessarily that's not the case, because shocker, shocker, times are changing. And with times changing, lifestyles are obviously going to change. And some people need to acknowledge that just because they went through trauma growing up doesn't mean that the younger generation has to, despite them doing stuff so that they don't have to. But laziness, from the perspective of not wanting to do things, is something that stays the same no matter the way society changes. And I think that by people calling the youth lazy, I feel like it's a bit more of a misunderstanding. But do they have a reason to? Occasionally, yes. But do they have a reason to say that because they're doing stuff that they couldn't at one point be able to do? No. So I think that, in conclusion, laziness, by people calling the youth lazy, it's a bit of a misunderstanding, but at the same time, they do have a right to say that, because less and less youth are willing to work. Less and less youth are willing to take time out of their day to study. Less and less youth are willing to give up their screen time and lower it. So is it a misunderstanding? Yes. But if there's some facts to it, of course.
Absolutely. And there are some facts to it, of course. But the point is that it's a it's a mix of generational misconception and the challenges of the digital age, right? Because the world has changed, as you rightly said, and that is very true. And with the nature of work and motivation. But one of the things that I think has been missing is that because the world has changed and there is availability of tools and opportunities, it therefore becomes somehow not necessarily making people to know that they need to work hard to achieve because they have the tools. The laziness aspect sets in. And because the older generation or the earlier generation did work so hard to achieve what they're achieving today, they had no computers, they had no mobile phones, right? They had no internet. And they had to push letters through post offices to reach where they were supposed to reach. And it took months. It therefore means what we need to do, especially for this generation, is to make them to understand that with every technological change or advancement, there are also challenges that comes with it. That if you have internet and you know that you can be able to utilize your phone to access information, then that gets taken for granted. Then you miss an opportunity because just the fact that you think you have it and you are not making effort to utilize it to the maximum, you are actually missing an opportunity. And it therefore means embracing the strengths of this generation, especially the young people, utilizing technology as a tool for growth and not just for entertainment, needs to become the norm and not the exception. And therefore, proving the stereotypes wrong by showcasing youth unique strengths in turning challenges to opportunities become the most important aspect. So the point then becomes, if the youth do have a lot, as they do have now, what is stopping them to excel much better than the generation that came before, right? Because those who are born in the 70s and the 60s and those who are born in the 2000s and the late 2010 and 20s should be much better as they advance because they have every tool. Don't you think that because the youth do have every tool, it's actually a precursor for the laziness that we see today? What says you, Afu? I see you are
Um,
smiling.
Yeah, I think that that's a good point that you brought up. However, I think that although the technology is still evolving and is different from what it was 40, 50 years ago, that still doesn't change the fact that life is hard for just youth in their own way. Just because we don't have to walk through the trenches to go to school does not mean that we face hardships and challenges just because we're not accustomed to that style. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, as the infamous saying goes. But I believe that
Please
although there are
what
more
did you say? Repeat that. What
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 doesn't kill
doesn't
you
do what?
makes you stronger.
And so the youth are stronger or they are lazier.
No, I think that because I'm talking about the older generation is strong because they've obviously experienced many different things, but at the same time, the youth's challenges are not quote unquote less than just because they're not at the same magnitude. And I also think that there is a point from what the older generation is, and through that they are speaking from a perspective that is very, very, very true. And although some people consider the youth lazy, what I bring back to it is that the youth is just misunderstood. But as we grow older, there are more distractions, which many more people get involved with. So, in conclusion, I think that despite that the youth challenges are different from the elderly challenges, laziness still occurs, just like laziness still occurred 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah, but this is the point, and you are not going to run away from this point, and I think it's a very, very important point. So what I'm saying is this, and you've answered partly that the for those who are believers, and I mean who believe in the Bible, right, and they've read the Bible, said unto him that much is given, much is expected. To whom much is given, much is expected. Do you think that because of the availability of tools now, they're actually detrimental to the transformational progress of young people because they think they do have it and then they take it for granted? Is that where we are today? You're a young person. What would you tell your fellow young people?
Well, I think that despite the tools being available, for example, social media is a tool. Some people are using social media to show off their new Lamborghinis. Some people are using social media to show their new ideas. So I think that the tools that are given can be used, they're a double edged sword. Similarly, back in the day, there was, I don't know even what there was back there, cyber cafes. Some people were using cyber cafes to do 419. Some people were using cyber cafe to apply for scholarships. So realistically, throughout century, there's going to be tools and resources that are a double-ended sword. So to answer your question, yes, there are resources. Yes, some people are taking it for granted, but at the end of the day, that's not all use. And at the end of the day, it has been happening throughout time. And I believe that it's just generally up to the person and generally up to the environment, which is something we'll dive into after the break.
Perfect. That's something we'll dive into after the Yes, for every challenge, there is a hidden opportunity. And for those of you who are joining on, we are discussing how we can awaken ambition and, more importantly, overcome laziness to seize destiny. And I'm joined by my co-host Daniel Afumbomuna. And before we went on break, Afu, we were talking about, you said something, and we're building on the point that unto him that much is given, much is expected. And so to the young people today, where the technological tools and especially social media is at their doorstep, are they using it for good, or are they using it to retrogress their own progressive development? And before we went on break, the point I was raising was we need to then be able to ensure that at least we embrace the strengths of this generation, inspire them, so that at least they can be able to use technology to as a tool for growth, not just as a tool for entertainment. Entertainment is important, but leverage is to do that which was never done by our founding fathers or our forefathers or even the generation that came before us, so that we can prove the stereotypes wrong by showcasing our unique strengths. And that takes me to this point, Afo, which is the most important aspect of this discussion today. One who is listening now could be asking the question, how can one identify if he or she is falling into a pattern of laziness? And what would you be able to say that are patterns of laziness according to you? Because the truth is this, it's when the tomorrows keep piling up and passions start to fade that anything, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow. And then the passion you had for it start to fade. What says you?
Well, I think that you brought up a good point, and before the break, I mentioned that we're going to move into the environment side of it. And by
Correct.
environment, I don't mean the trees and the crops that grow outside your door.
I love
I
that.
mean your social environment. And I think that if you want to determine if you're one of the lazy ones, if I can call it that, um, then just look at your environment. Look at who you surround yourself with. Do you surround yourself with people who have big plans and who are going towards their plans, or do you surround yourself with people who are just waiting for someone to come and save them from their poverty, save them from their challenges, or are you hanging around people who are saving themselves and who are being mentors so that they can save others and have others save themselves as well? So, in conclusion, I think that in order for you to check and keep yourself in check, just look at who you surround yourself with. And if you would want to be the person who is on the side of justice and who's on the side of building a community and your friends aren't like that, start to mentor your friends and start to mentor the people around you so that it takes just one person. It takes just one mindset change to mentor your friend group, for your friend to mentor their friends, and for their friend to mentor their friends, and for their friend to mentor the globe. So I think that just check who you're surrounded with, and if you're surrounded with people who aren't uplifting, be the person who uplifts them. And if you're surrounded by people who are uplifting, follow your friend's example, follow your colleague's example, follow your classmates' example if you aspire to be like them, in the sense of not being lazy and being driven to pursue hard work.
Not being lazy and driven to pursue hard work. And you're talking about collective endeavor. Yeah, that's how we sum it up, where we all each to play a part. And I'll use the aspect of the basketball or even the football analogy. Yes, if you have 11 players in, in on the pitch and each of the players don't play their part, it will become extremely difficult for the team to collectively play and win. It means each and every one of us, out of the over 8.4 billion people on the planet and the over 1.4 billion Africans, should then be able to play their part, right? And so, in the process of laziness, you mentioned the word environment. Yet, the environment being not just the plants, the animals, the soil, the sky, but also where you are physically and those who surround you and your interaction. Does it mean, from what you are saying, that if you are associated with lazy people, you will automatically be induced into the laziness lane? And if so, what needs to be done?
Well, I think that in general, generally speaking, if your friends are all lazy, the chances of you being lazy are higher than if your friends are all productive people. And I can give the example from my perspective. Like I work now, and the reason why I started working is because at one point I was the only one in my friend group who wasn't working. So I decided to work because I just saw that it was important, and how working, even if you don't necessarily have to, is very important to be financially literate at a young age. So I think it's embedded in the people around you on your next steps. However, if you have a lot of fortitude and a lot of determination, if your friend group is all full of lazies and full of trash bags, then you may not necessarily be a trash bag. And from you not being a trash bag, you can mentor your trash bag friends to change their ways. And that could be a mentorship, collective activism to be the best in your community. And but generally speaking, if your friends are trash bags, then you're going to be a trash bag. But if you have determination and you have the ability to mentor your friends, because people trust their friends, right? So if you're telling your friend that, okay, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and your friend is like, okay, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, then you have to trust them.
Yes. So if you tell your friends that you are doing something and you show that you are doing something, then definitely they're going to learn from you. And so the point on this conversation today is, how do we ensure that at least we create the environment in which people can actually be able to learn from us? Wherever you are, you become a benchmark for others to follow, rather than only waiting for others, or only waiting to follow others without you creating the environment for you to also be followed. And that is quite a very, very important aspect, because this debate on laziness, as we are discussing it, have implications, because the idea of how do you ensure that at least you identify if you are falling into a pattern of laziness, the answer is, it is when the tomorrows keep piling up. Anything you are to do today, you say, I will do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. And then your passion starts fading up. But there are practical steps that you can be able to take today. And those steps are, first of all, create a vision board about where you put what you want to do, and then visualize where you want to be. And at the same time, let that image pull you forward. You visualize where you want to be and let that image pull you forward. And when you see your dreams daily, it's harder to stay stagnant, because then that passion internally starts to fuel, so that you move forward with whatever thing that you are doing. And that was the conversation that we were having. And that
Oh,
conversation was
sorry, my
quite very, very
laptop
important, because the
was
point
having
is,
issues.
without the right environment, then definitely to then move forward. Go ahead, Afo.
Oh yeah, sorry guys, my laptop was having issues, but before it randomly shut down, I was talking about that it's all about the people you surround yourself with. And if the people who you surround yourself with aren't the most influential and aren't the most hardworking, and you want to change them, then you have to first start by changing yourself, because their habits are probably going to rub onto you. So, for example, if your friend group is full of unemployed people, the chances of you staying unemployed are higher than if you were friends with people who are working. So, by you trying to better yourself and your friends seeing that, then they'll try to better each other, and you'll be the person who started it all. And through collective activism, you will be able to shift the narrative that laziness should not be normalized. And I think that Dr. Manan covered more points as I was gone.
Laziness should not be normalized. And that's a very important point now that you're touching, because as you put those perspectives, then the aspect now becomes, what are the psychological and environmental factors that contribute to laziness? And I think the answer to this, which we're going to add, is that from fear of failure to an unsupportive environment, there are many hidden changes that are buying us. And you did mention this unsupportive environment where laziness is encouraged, right? There is really no role model to actually be benchmark. And therefore, to address these changes, the first thing we do is talk to someone, be it a friend or a professional, change your environment if need be, even if it's just rearranging your room or workspace. A fresh perspective can reignite motivation. Do you agree with this?
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. And I think that by just having, for example, just even shifting where your closet is, or even just putting candles on your desk that could change the atmosphere. And once the
Green candles
atmosphere,
are
yeah, and
perfect.
once the atmosphere is changed, you may feel a different aura about doing stuff. And for me personally, when I work in different environments, I feel more productive. So if that works for you, it works for you. And just do the stuff that you know will help you be a more productive and more active person, both physically and mentally.
Both physically and mentally. But there is this point that a lot of people say they want to be leaders, but when they get up, they can't even fix their bed. If you don't lead yourself, how can you lead others? Do you think that this is really that is most common things that are ingredients for growth and preparation for others to be able to champion and try on are ignored, and then we are focused only on the bigger things that cannot happen without the nitty gritty being taken into consideration? What says you?
So I think that's a really good point because all these little things add up to the big things. For example, I'm going to use the example of volleyball. If you don't know how to spike a ball and like make an amazing kill, then you're not going to be able to perform well in the game. But if you're a hitter, like someone who spikes it down, you still need to know how to pass. You still need to know how to set. You still need to know how to dig. You still need to know how to run and stuff like that. So even if your goal is, for example, to be, I don't know, a mathematician, let's use an academic perspective, you still need to know how to read and write because you're going to be writing reports. So people tend not to realize that they need to know how to do more things than what just meets the eye, because all of these things will make you a more holistic and well-rounded person.
Absolutely, very very important point. More holistic and more rounded person. And now let's move to this point then, as I hand over to you as the co-host, which is like we say, right? The environment is important, but we need to have tools that we can overcome laziness. I think those who are listening to us, our viewers and contributors, and please drop your comments, drop your ideas in the chat area where you are watching, and give perspective, because the question many viewers I'm sure they're asking is, how can setting goals help one to combat his or her laziness? And I think what we need to be looking at is that goals are the lighthouses in the fog of laziness, right? They guide us and remind us of our path. So if you set goals, say this is what I want to do before end of day, end of tomorrow, end of week, and then you write down your goals and place them somewhere visible, just by your bedside, or where you can easily have sight of it, and break those goals down into smaller tasks. Each tick on your checklist is a step closer to your dreams, and that then could motivate you. What do you think, Afu?
I think that's a really good point. And by just doing little things and just
Right.
manifesting, because people always like manifest, but in order to manifest, you need to work towards your goals. And I think that by working towards your goals in small, little attainable steps, you have to, you'll be able to achieve it more effectively. Because people are like, oh, I want to be a doctor, I have to do this, I want to be a cardiothoracic surgeon. But they don't realize that it starts with first getting an A in my science class, then getting an A in my math class, then applying to this. They just think about the long picture, but forget about all the little small steps that it takes in order to achieve these big goals that many people
Yeah, I
do
think
have.
you have mentioned a very important point, and that point goes to starting with small things as we think big. And I think with the current generation of today, there seems to be that absence of small steps giving birth to bigger steps. Do you think that, like I go back to what we discussed earlier in the question, that there is more emphasis on bigger things while the nitty gritty things are ignored, whereas the nitty gritty things are the foundation we need today? And if so, how can we reverse this? Because you rightly equated it to, if you want to be a medical doctor, you cannot ignore that very course called chemistry, biology, physics, mathematics. But yet we will talk about somebody being medical doctor rather than inspiring and motivating the person to be good in maths, physics, chemistry, biology, and even other subjects that are quite very, very important. What says you?
Yeah, that's an important point too. And I think if we look at it from another perspective, that for example, oh, I want to be the next Mbappe, but am I um am I on a soccer team? No. Can I run? Not really. Can I dribble a soccer ball? Probably not. Um, th- but will I be Mbappe? Yes. am I on a soccer team? No. Can I even run? No. Like, basically, we need to start by developing small steps. Like, oh, I want to play for Team Canada. I need to start by joining a club. I need to start by in that club excelling, then playing for Team Ontario, then doing like small steps at a time. Small attainable goals will then lead to your ultimate big goal. Because I'm sure that all of these pro soccer players, all these pro academics, they obviously dream to get to this level, but they had smaller and smaller steps to help them realize their dream and not feel overwhelmed and not burn out. Because burnout is very tragic when it does happen, but to minimize the chances of you burning out way too early on in your career or within your studies, you need to spread stuff out in smaller uh goals, small attainable goals. Yeah.
Excellent. Very, very important points that you are bringing up there. But now this is the point. The word mentors keep coming up. And the question then becomes, how can mentors and role models play a role in reducing laziness among our youth today? Because like you rightly said, the information technology is a space to also mentor, to guide, to provide advice. But sometimes this is misused to instead put pressure and somehow set the pace for mental health in young people by them thinking they have not achieved enough. But whereas what is actually shown is not reality, it's just some kind of opulence that does not even exist. Right. So the question then becomes, how can mentors and role models become not just inspirational figures, but also educators to the youth? And I think one of the aspects that needs to be looked at is that they are the living proof of what is possible, the authentic ones, right? And so they have walked the path and can guide the young people through the good, the bad, and the ugly. But sometimes what is shown is just the good and the pathway of the bad and the ugly, so that at least people can avoid those missteps can actually happen. And so the thinking then becomes seeking out stories of those who everybody admires to understand the good, the bad, and the ugly, the challenges and the opportunities of what they have encountered become important. And they're also reaching out for guidance, which is the most important part, because remembering that every successful person was once where each and every one of us is here today. It then takes me to this point, guidance, which a lot of people don't want to take guidance, structured guidance. They don't want to be guided, yet they want to be mentored. And mentorship is about guidance. That it's not always what you would like to hear, but what you need to hear. Do you really think the young people are ready to be mentored?
I think that generally speaking, we need to look at it from a holistic perspective, because if you ask the average young person, would you like a mentor? They'll be like, obviously, yeah, but are they showing steps that a mentor, because a mentor can't do everything. That's something
Correct.
that we need to look at. So you need to start on your own path so that a mentor can help you. For example, a tutor. Your math tutor can't go and write the math exam for you, but they can give you steps so that you can succeed academically. Your coach can't go and play, your coach can't go run the 100-meter dash for you, but they can give you drills so that you can be a faster runner. So it's the same thing with mentorship. Your mentor can't go and apply for a job for you, but they can give you tips on how to be a well-rounded applicant, meaning that many young people need to realize that they cannot feed them that much, and they cannot help them to the point of handing them things. So these young people across the continent have to start by building their own self first and then getting a mentor. You can't just get a mentor when you have nothing to show, because what are they going to mentor you on?
Right.
Exactly. So I think that many young people think that they're ready, but until that they have stuff, until they have a foundation. I don't know why that was so hard to say. Until they have a foundation, then I personally don't think that a mentor would do any help.
Very important point. That is a very, very important point. And I think what is really key is we must be able to develop the attitude of accepting and listening to be guided, right? Because if not, then it becomes very, very difficult. And I know that as I hand over to you, this is the last point, which is how can one stay motivated and maintain momentum once they have started on a path of productivity? I know a lot of people are wondering and thinking about this, but I think one of the things that whoever is listening needs to understand is consistency. Consistency and celebrating every victory. Please never ever be shy to celebrate any victory, no matter how small it is. I know that the structure and the construct on which we were brought up was to shy away and not celebrate our victories. Let me tell you, every victory, no matter how small it is, when you celebrate, it gives you added impetus, that momentum for you to be motivated, to be passionate, to do much more. And that's what pushes you forward. That's what wakes you up in the morning to do more, to do more, to do more. But yet, when people celebrate the little, they say they're showing off. I'm advising you guys, celebrate, all right? Be consistent, bring community, be part of community, and enjoy yourself, dance, talk about where you come from with pride, tell your stories, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and please celebrate every victory. Join or create a group of like-minded individuals. Celebrate every achievement. Never ever hide your achievement, no matter how small. Let each success fuel your next endeavor. What says you, Afu, as I hand over to you now to take over?
Well, I think that you answered most of what I was going to say. However, I think that in order for you not to get burnt out, you just need to lock in and just divide up your work so that you feel less impact. For example, if you have a test tomorrow, maybe start studying a few days before your test, not the night before, as that generally doesn't end up in the best way possible. But I think that through locking in and through staying determined on your goals, that also minimizes burnout because you just got to look at the final picture. And I know I said that in order to get big goals, you need to sum them down. But if you're feeling burnt out, just remember what the end goal is for you. The end goal isn't necessarily just not to get in, just to get a 90 in math. The end goal is for you to be like a doctor, for example. So you need to just look at the big picture and keep on going in order for you to minimize burnout and just spread out your work so that you don't feel as overwhelmed as you would be if you just left everything to the night before.
Excellent. You are the co-host. Over.
Okay, so yeah, it's my time, guys. For those of you guys who are watching, we usually go back and forth, relaying and rallying questions. So for the first question I have before we wrap up, I'm wondering, how did you seize your destiny in an environment that wasn't the most ambitious for what you wanted to do? What allowed you to overcome any no's and turn them into yeses? What made you turn the I can'ts into I can? So, yeah.
I love that. What made me turn the I can't to I can? Very important. So the reality is that there is an internal human ingenuity, which is the ability of a human to self-believe is so huge that we underestimate it. And all you need is to be encouraged. And I think the encouragement was more from a harsh perspective, but it was helpful from the fact that if you don't give your best, you're not going to be successful. I think those words of not giving your best, you are not going to be successful. And at the same time, also the self-drive that I wanted to be the best actually propelled and helped one to then overcome the naysayers that one was unable to do it. So, and it's not then when I was young, even till today. So the point is, when an individual tell his or herself that I am able and focus on what he or she does, just the fact that you say I am able and will do it and focus on it is already an impetus and an extra mile that you've gone as compared to I can't do it. I don't know how to solve math and I'm not even willing to learn. That's self-defeatist, and the self-defeatism that comes with that already takes you 10 steps backward. And therefore the self-belief that one could do it and the encouragement that if you don't do it then you're going to end up a failure also gave an extra mile. But more importantly was what I call purpose, right? What did I want to be and what am I supposed to do to be of usefulness to the community and society is actually what adds what is called not just passion, but makes the clarity of what you are doing and where you're going, which is to touch lives positively. And therefore, leveraging that spirit has never ever for a second slow down, because the intent is always to be better and do it not necessarily for self, but to be able to touch other people's lives. Over.
Oh, yeah, that's an excellent point. And I think that as we're wrapping up, we have one comment from Ayin Mafum that says courage.
Yeah, courage. Yes, and thanks for joining again. Yes, Afu.
Yeah, before we wrap up, I think that we should just take some time to acknowledge how far everyone has came. And if you're watching this, you've come a long way. and keep on pushing so that you aren't the trash bags that we discussed in this episode. You're the one motivating the trash bags around you. So I think that as we wrap up, we just got to say lock in, follow your goals, make everything in smaller steps, seize your destiny, carpe diem, carpe noctem, do all the carpe, seize everything, seize all your opportunities, and just make sure that you strive and aspire to inspire others, whether it's a kid you've never seen in your life or the people around you. So, yeah.
Very, very important point, and Afu, thanks for being an amazing host. And I think one of the most important aspects for those of you who are joining in and those who have been with us in this conversation today on the Mindset Sport, it's very clear that each and every one of us must remember that the journey from inertia to action is a transformative one. And it's not about never feeling lazy. It's about choosing to rise time and time again when that feeling knocks on each and every one of us. And therefore, with the right mindset, with the right tools, and with the right support, the world is yours to conquer. And that's a very important point of what me and Afu have discussed today. Each and every one of us have got potential, but potential is more useful when it's turned to reality. And so here is to you seizing opportunities and driving progress, because the reality is that distinguishing between genuine rest and inertia and shedding the light on the misconceptions surrounding today's younger generation becomes very, very important, because our youth are our strength. And diving into the root causes of laziness, from psychological barriers to environmental challenges, they offer inspiring, actionable steps to reignite passion and drive. And so with a focus on goal settings, as Afu said, on mentorship, and the young people willing to be mentored, to be structurally guided, and to take guidance, and at the same time maintaining momentum becomes very, very important, because this episode, the Mindset Spot today, serves as a beacon for those seeking to transform their lives. It's not just about understanding laziness as we've discussed it. It's about awakening ambition. It's about seizing one's destined path. And therefore, join us on this transformative journey. And until then, it is the Mindset Sport. So stay inspired and keep moving forward as we put laziness on the run and prosperity into the cockpit of progress. Until then, it is the Mindset Sport. Bye-bye.
See you guys next week.